Welcome back, guys. I know it's been a minute since I have posted a recap of Interview with the Vampire, and I promise, especially since season 3 is right around the corner, but I am back to talk about season 2, episode 2. And this, I will be completely honest, I did not love in real time, but for season 2, these are not my favorite episodes. The latter half of the season is, but in each episode, there are moments that I just absolutely love. And I am sure the reason why these first maybe 2-3 episodes are not my favorite is because I am such an impatient human being. I will gladly say that. So when I have to sort of wait for the treat of the plot of the season, I get a little angsty. That does not mean this is still not a fantastic episode to behold. So, let's go through it again. I'm hoping to see some things with new eyes. We'll see. Okay, Louis continuing to be an annoying little twink is probably number 1. I was as frustrated with Louis as Claudia was, especially in this early episodes. Louis very much came off as such a passive passenger in his own life, and that is frustrating because after everything that goes down in season 1, you expect more from him. Claudia expects more from him. It's the side eye she gives him. And he just kind of always fails to deliver. Obviously, it's not his fault. There's a war happening, so the blood that they need is kind of tainted by the repercussions of the war. But they finally arrived in Paris, and the way they don't even know that they're being watched by a group of vampires, that their moments are being clocked, that these vampires are like, wow, y'all are just going to be rude and not like introduce yourself to your local capture, your local chapter. Like sort of the audacity, the hubris. So folks are already out the gate not liking Claudia and Louis. And see, here we go. We see 2 members of, we soon learn, the Vampire de Theater. Oh, I'm sure I butchered that. I appreciate you, Daniel. I appreciate you for pointing out the fantasy that Louis kind of constantly lives in when he is recollecting his past memories. And, that is what Interview with the Vampire is. It's a recollection of our memories and how our memories shape our experience, past, present, and future. And Louis' damage behind is a perfect imagery of the repercussions of memory twisted throughout ages, throughout time. Especially when your lifespan is not a normal one. It's a longer one. They are immortals. They experience things in so many ways, but memory is not like 1,000. It's not an exact replay. And in season 1, we see that with how Louis recollects his time with Lestat. And in season 2, we see it. I'm gonna throw up at this scene. I hate these 2. And that was another thing that I hated about these 2 is like them like being lovey-dovey, fake coupley, and then repeating or finishing each other's sentences. Like I just wanted to throw myself out of a window because I was just disgusted with it. And I am sure we have all met a couple like this who just, their relationship is an act, and you just are like, do they know? Are they in on the fact that their entire life is an act? And Daniel is a perfect representation of the cynicism of whatever the fuck is happening between Armand and Louis in present time. And of course, we also have this whole side quest where Louis is living out his best dreams of being a Parisian photographer. That's a nice, fun side quest. Which one of us has not dreamed to live a life of the artiste in Paris with somehow bills and rent and everything else being taken care of? This scene, though, I will say is one of my favorite because of how Claudia is able to define who Louis is better than who he is. They have this discussion, right? She asks him, "Who are you outside of me?" He kind of doesn't answer. He does that side answer thing that Louis is famous for. But Claudia is not here for the bullshit. Like, who are you without me? If there was no me and there was no him being Lestat, who would you be? And I think that is a fascinating question because Louis has become this version of Louis due to his experiences with his family early on, but then later on with Lestat. And he in a sense, he was with Lestat longer than he was with his family. And now he has been with Armand longer than he has been with Lestat. And for Claudia, it's who are you without, I presume I might be wrong, but who are you without the memories of these people, these events, navigating your life in a certain way? And this is one of my favorite conversations in this episode. And it does such a fantastic job with Claudia pulling apart the bullshit that is Louis. Initially, she asks him, what are you looking for when you take a picture? And Louis kind of rambles on about, he's looking for something a little bit off, so on and so forth. And Claudia goes, give me the short answer, not this highbrow philosophical sounding answer that you think I want. And when he still doesn't give the correct or the truthful answer, the way she just states, is that how you sell yourself to you, or something of that, was just so deep, because all of this is Louis selling himself, this persona, this person that he would like to be and maybe is a part anyway. He still needs to sell that person to himself. And Claudia sees that. Claudia sees the lack of authenticity, in who Louis is and who Louis portrays himself to be. And of course, Claudia is sad. Claudia is still looking for something. She still wants to be someone. And the inklings of that start coming around when she comes across this shop. And in that shop window is Madeleine. We will soon find out. But I think at this point, Claudia herself doesn't know what intrigues her. Or maybe us as the viewer are just unable to know because we don't have her inside thoughts. This is not a book. But for Claudia, Madeleine is the first person she comes across who treats her as an adult. Now, I wouldn't say as an adult. That might be too far. But as a person. And that's all Claudia have ever wanted. Louis sees her as a burden. Louis sees her as his child. And the world sees Claudia as a child. But from what I get anyway, she sees Claudia as a person. It is wild to see these pictures of Claudia and their past in Paris. And as someone who's actually been thinking of printing or getting a lot of, I have a couple of albums that are super old, but I've realized sort of in the last decade, I've stopped, we've all stopped printing pictures and sort of the importance of that. Because when I go through my old photo albums of, photos of my childhood, my high school, my college, and it really takes me back to those moments in time. And having an electronic phone, and like you guys know, iPhone, whatever, a 2026 phone with the ability of a computer within it for us to take pictures everywhere, it lacks that remembrance that a album provides, I think. That might just be me, but if you guys think the same, definitely let me know, because again, I think those pictures definitely serve as a part of recollection, Louise especially. And then of course we get the first meet cute between Louis and Armand, and they just make everything that happened in their past so much worse by how they act in the future or in the present time as they're telling this story to Daniel. What was the first thing she told you? I will not harm you. And that feels like such a practice line. Their entire goddamn relationship is a practice line, but they both look fine as hell. God damn it. But with their meet cute, gets their introduction to the vampire theaters. I'm just gonna say it in English. Saying it in French makes me feel like I'm just bombing that language every moment. But they finally get introduced to this world of vampires. Claudia is instantly enamored. She loves everything about it. This is her moment to shine and drink in all this violence coupled with an idea of the theater. And this is a genius idea. Obviously, we later find out the birth of the vampire theater comes from Lestat. This world comes from the old world Armand ruled with an iron fist, and Lestat brought this freedom to it, while also leaving destruction in its wake, something we are very fond of Lestat for. But the first time I saw this, I think the most impactful moment was when the young lady is brought onto the stage. And of course, because we as the viewer understand that this world is real and vampires do exist, we know what's about to happen to this girl, while the audience is just like, oh, it's part of the play. Oh my God. Meanwhile, life is ending for her. And God, that must be just terrible for you to be there and for people to witness your death and all go, oh my God, she put on such a good play. And while it's kind of skeeved out by the whole project, again, like I said, Claudia drinks it in, reminding us who the true monster. I mean, that's not the right word to use, but reminding us that Claudia is in fact just more the predator between Louis. Louis is more dangerous, but Claudia is in fact the predator. But outside of all of that, I really enjoyed watching Claudia's eyes light up at this new world. Like I said, like we all know, this is what she's wanted. And the fact that she's just in the most adorable outfits. Again, these are the outfits that she has commissioned Madeline to create for her. She is shining and she feels like she has found her element. We meet Santiago, who is just like an inspiration for her. Again, she has wanted to meet other vampires. Unfortunately, it's going to lead to her ruination. Like, this is the moment where her story begins to end. And that's fucking terrible. Because at this point, they should have just left. Should not have stayed. Especially after they see that picture of fucking Lestat on a wall. You don't know these people. And I will say initially, Louis is weary, but he gets sidetracked by Dick. Because that is Louis' kryptonite. I mean, and not all Dick, that's an insult to him, but definitely of a charismatic type. Maybe that's a better way to say that. And again, let us not forget that as much as this whole thing is annoying us, it's annoying Daniel, who has to listen to this bullshit. But past the Parisian lifestyle, past the new acquaintances, past finding who he is without her, and her finding out who she is without him, is still the biggest stressor in their lives. And no amount of pictures can hide that. And we see it when Louis breaks, when he just randomly, no, not randomly, but when he intently kills a person that he goes to pick up in one of those parks. And that person being Lestat. And in this episode, we get one of the best lines I have ever heard. One of the best soliloquies I have ever heard, where Lestat leaves a letter for Louis. And Louis finds out about this letter by going to, I think it's an Esquire lawyer who represents Lestat's interest. And in going to this guy, he gets this letter read to him. And oh my God, I feel like I cried when this letter was, like, the first time I watched this episode and heard this letter. There is no way I did not cry. And I love this letter reading by Lestat to Louis because I think it's a fantastic comparison to episode 1, where the first time Louis sees Lestat in his memories, it's Lestat being like, I'm going to come and kill you, sort of like the boogeyman. But that's Lestat's interpretation from Louis. And in episode 2, we get this letter reading from Lestat essentially saying, like, I'm not dead, but we are separated. And if I'm separated, like, kind of know, like, don't go after the people that did this. But, like, my biggest question, I'll be honest, is when the hell did Lestat have time to do this sub-will? Like, it feels like there's a main will, and there's, like, this, give him this box if I'm just incapacitated. Like, I'm not really dead, but I'm definitely out the game. And it is so, oh my God, let's stop being like, whom I love more than myself. Like, you guys are not the worst human beings ever. But saying you are my love and you are its keeper, a veil will now forever separate our union. Jesus Christ, I hope whoever was in the writer's room, right? I don't know, was it actually maybe directly from the books? Please correct me if I'm wrong, but just the sadness, the tearfulness from this, again, portrayal, imagination of Lestat towards Louis and Louis' remembrance of Lestat is insane. And then I love how Daniel is just like, and Well, what's your point? And Armand is like, damn, he just told you his feelings. Why are you being rude like this? And again, I appreciate Daniel bringing us out of the delusions of these memories that Louis shares from us by being such a cynic about what exactly Louis is sharing. But of course, as Daniel manages to break Louis breaks him too using the memory of Alice. And in recollecting the memory of Alice for Daniel, we don't see Alice. We see fucking Armand. We see Armand, and we are perplexed as to why Armand is showing up in Daniel's memory and what the context is. They're all broken. I love it by the end of this episode, right? Like, Daniel pushed Louis' button a little bit much, and Louis pressed it back and used his powers and showed just, why he is in fact Louis. And in the past, we get the hints of also a rivalry between Santiago and Louis in Paris. And you just get the feeling that none of this is going to end up well. While Armand is taking Claudia and him around the town, showing him the life that they live, which allows Louis to take his pictures, which technically would be pictures of crime scenes, no? Right? These are our pictures of crime scenes? Anyway, they're vampires who's going to do something. But again, this romanticization of what, in my opinion, would be a very get the fuck out of Paris time. But post-war, I believe they're post-war or close to post-war, the euphoria of life, especially life that we see from Claudia, just makes us all delirious as to what we're seeing, what we're experiencing, and the life we're living. And of course, Armand looks beautiful in his outfits. Louis, just costuming is delicious. Give me these eyeglasses. Give me these sunglasses. Perfection. But what do we learn? What changes about everyone in season 2, episode 2? The title, of course, being, do you know what it means to be loved by death? Pointing to the Vampire Theater's seduction of that young lady on stage. She is literally loved by death, to death as well, by Santiago. And what does that mean for our revolving characters? Right? Louis being loved by Lestat. Armand being loved by Louis. These people are all literally dead, but still with the ability to love. And sometimes their love hurts, sometimes it kills, and sometimes it brings immeasurable sadness. It's terrible love, but it is still love. And that's where I'm going to leave it for this episode, is just with the title, with our characters. Do you know what it means to be loved by death? Now, please let me know in the comments, what do you guys think that title points to? How does that title, that episode title, affect you? What does it represent for you? What does it bring up for you? And outside of that, thank you guys for listening. Again, I promise to be back with episode 3 as soon as possible. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for listening. Please make sure you subscribe. Bye.